All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for clicking play. This is Digging Deep, an Okie Able One podcast. I'm MG Govia, the Education Outreach Liaison for Okie Able One. And today, we're going to have a really good conversation with a notification center from Canada. How cool is that? If you are not aware, 811 or the call before you dig or click before you dig message is international. And so each province or state has an opportunity for excavators to call in to get lines marked. And this is what we're going to talk about, kind of the evolution of what's gone on in Canada and compare that with here in Oklahoma and go from there. So today I'm joined with Mike Sullivan. He is president of the Utility Safety Partners. Did I say that right?
You did, yes, you did.
Okay. And so Mike, tell me a little bit about your journey with the Utility Service Partners or Safety Partners and go from there.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. It's interesting how we got to where we are in Alberta and even in Canada, with the how to conduct a locate request, the best method of doing so. When the U.S. had 811, when 811 began and the Common Ground Alliance introduced it and they secured that 3-digit dialing, it was the envy of Canada. Transmission pipeline companies like TransCanada, now TC Energy, Enbridge Pipelines, Alliance Pipeline. Now, the big companies out there that have a lot of infrastructure in the US as well, they really wanted to have that 3-digit dialing in Canada, secure 811 as well. How cool would it have been if we could promote that 811 number across North America, right? It would have been perfect, would have been great. Now, at the time when this began, I wasn't with Alberta One Call, which is now Utility Safety Partners. I was working as a consultant and in a completely different area, but I was also working with the Canadian Common Ground Alliance, which was really in its infancy at the time. And somehow, and I can't remember how, to be quite honest, somehow I found myself in the role of going down the path to secure 3-digit dialing 811 in Canada. Now, to do so, we had to provide an application to the CRTC, which is Government of Canada, the Canadian Radio and Television Communications. And that application had to go through the proper steps, and it cost a lot of money. So we had to raise $100,000 to do this.
Wow.
And then in the process of doing that, we found out that 811 was already secured, except the organizations that had secured it weren't using it.
Oh, wow.
In fact, it was Alberta Health Services that secured 811 for telehealth, but they weren't using it. So we began having conversations across the country saying, we want to secure this for the same reasons they use it in the US. Makes all the sense in the world. And I was able to raise $100,000 to create this application, hire a lawyer out of Ottawa, where we have our capital. And he had a lot of experience in this area to create this application to the CRTC. Now, to make a long story short, we raised the money. There was a lot of interest. We submit our application and we waited. And I think it was like 9 months before we finally got the answer. And when we did get the answer, I believe then I was now president of Alberta One Call.
Okay.
And the answer was no, you can't have it. And what we had done actually was considered a 2-step process. So we wanted to recognize 811 was there for telehealth because it was starting to get used a little bit. And a person could dial 811, press 1 for telehealth and 2 for a locate. And they said, no, too confusing. And it wasn't perfect. Now, in the background, knowing that this might not fly, I started thinking, okay, how else can we do this? And so here, think about it. We had raised $100,000 to do this, right? To submit an application, a paper exercise. I went on to GoDaddy. I think for like $12.99, I secured clickbeforeyoudig.com, and in a couple of minutes it was done, and I put that aside. And once the answer from the CRTC came out, I had already prepared a presentation. Here's the backup plan. And I was delivering a presentation to the Canadian Energy Pipeline Association. And this is an association that is now defunct, but that association was made up of the major transmission pipeline companies in Canada. And I gave a presentation to their standing committee on operations, VPs, that type of thing, directors. And said, the 811 objective in Canada didn't work, but here's what we plan to do. And I made a mock-up of what is now clickbeforeyoudig.com, that website that you click on a province and you can submit your locate request. And I remember a VP of operations from TransCanada Pipelines, TC Energy, saying, Mike, I have a question. I said, what's that? Why didn't we do that first? And and I just stopped and I said, it's a good question. I said, I think we had to go through the process.
Yeah.
Now, the benefits of going online is that it's 24/7, right? 7 days a week, 365. And people are used to creating a request through the web for a hotel, for plane tickets, to go to see a sporting event, to order a pizza, you name it. It's all being done online. But 10 years ago, not so much. It was just really starting the younger group, or generations were really getting more adept to it. And we started to push click before you dig rather than call. And that was probably about 2012. And and as soon as we started, it was interesting. We went from about 17% of online locate requests, and then we changed to click before you dig. And within months, we went to about 65%, like that, almost overnight. And the software we were using, the agent still had to process the locate request, even if it came in online. And so it was a time saver for the public, because they didn't have to wait for a phone call or to make a phone call, between Monday and Friday, and then deal with the backlog of the wait times to get to speak to an agent. But the agent still had a lot of processing to do. So it was a lot of overtime and that type of thing. It was frustrating. It was challenging. So then we moved forward with, we did a lot of promotion to go online. I can talk about that in a moment. But then we looked at software in general and where we were. And the cost of changing softwares to one that had the auto process built in at the time was, and it still is, it's still quite expensive. And we were providing services for the province of Manitoba and British Columbia at the time. And so, well, why don't we align our business rules between Manitoba to the Pacific Ocean, those 4 provinces? And once we align the business rules, well, then maybe we can launch a collective request for proposals for new software, and we can share one software license for half the country. And in my view, how different can the processes be from one province to another? A person requests a locate, that locate request is processed, and utility owners are notified. How different can it be?
Right.
But it was. There are little nuances. Each province had their own, and it took about 6 months. And I say it every time, I commend my colleague, the operations director, utility safety partners, Cher Kirk, with getting it done. I remember when asking her, how long would this take? And she said, it'd take at least a year.
Right.
I said, well, I'll give you 6 months. And she got it done in 7, actually. And she did a great job. Now, that allowed us to go to an RFP. And the short story is that we secured Pelican Corp as our provider. That was the big game changer, because it eliminated the agent interaction with the online locate request. Now, how we proliferated locate requests online, we did a long advertising campaign. Click before you dig was our call to action. Mm-hmm. It was our hashtag. It was on radio. It was online. We did, even if a person was calling for a locate request, they heard our a recording saying you can go online and do this, and we will help you, etc. And we also had random draws. So every month we had draws. We'd take all the locate requests that were done online, all the email addresses, and do a random selection. And the person who won would get either an iPad mini or a Google Home, and just kept doing this. And we'd feature that online. And then we got to a point where we just seemed to level off. We couldn't get any higher than, say, I don't know, 80%, of the contractors and members that just wouldn't go online. So I was talking to our contact center manager, and he was a real data guy. And I said, Joe, I have this hunch that a locate request done online, the integrity of that request is better than a locate request done over the phone. And I said, because nobody knows better where they're digging than the person digging. And if they go online, they get to plot it right into the map. So he said, okay, interesting. Let me take a look at that. He did a study, analysis, and determined that my hunch was right. That if you take all the damages and then you determine how many were locate requests, so for how many had a locate request, first of all.
Right.
If they did have a locate request, was it a phone or a web locate request? Turned out that if there was a damage, it was more than twice as likely to have been a phone locate request than an online. Mm-hmm. So we approached our board of directors and our operations oversight and guidance committee with a recommendation that we need to mandate online locate requests or click before you dig for members and contractors. And they agreed. So 2 years ago, actually just, I think it was September 16th, 2 years ago, we had a soft launch that every person who was a member or a contractor who called in a locate request, okay, we'll help you through it, but this is your last time. After this, wow, you have to go online. And, the agents, the team leaders, our contact center manager, everybody did a great job because we used 3 months, September, October, November, 4 months, December, to tell the digging community that this is what we're doing. And our board agreed. And January 1st, we had the hard launch. So September 16th, a soft launch, January 1st, a hard launch. And since then, 97, 98% of all locate requests from the members and contractors are online. And the only reason we can't reach 100% is because it also includes emergencies and they have to be called in.
Right.
So that has been a huge game changer. And an interesting byproduct of this, one of our members, a distribution gas company, they said, what we found, Mike, is that if there's a claim and an excavator hits our facility, our utilities, and we find out the locate request was made online, when it goes to an adjudicator, they look at this and they say, okay, your Johnny Lunch Bucket here, you put this locate request in yourself. They said, yes, I did. Okay, you clicked before you did. Yes, I did. And you said this is where you're excavating. Yes. Well, how come the damage occurred outside the area where you were supposed to be excavating? They said it's actually reducing the number of claims. They just get thrown out because it's so obvious that, well, you said you're digging here, but the damage happened over there.
Yeah.
So these are the byproducts of that. And, at the same time, we've been working with all of our members. Our member services team has done a great job working with our members to go from grid data to polygon data. Mm-hmm. And they've been able to reduce their buffer zones, which has dramatically reduced the number of notifications. So it's been an interesting journey all the way along. And I never thought it would get to this point. And I just saw the DIRT report for Canada. It came out last week. It's not available yet, but I saw the preliminary report. And 84% of all locate requests in Canada now are online. So, it's that thing, if you build it, they will come, right?
Right.
And we have clickbeforeyoudig.com. We press click before you dig all the time. We push it, and collectively across the country, and the results are astounding.
That is such a great story. I mean, and all that happened in just 10 years. I mean,
10 years.
Yeah. I know that here in Oklahoma, our goal, for those who pop up on YouTube, I'm using an old wallpaper for my Zoom background, but we use 811 before you dig now. We haven't gone to straight up click before you dig, but we have some ideas. So here in Oklahoma, for our listeners, at the end of this podcast on our, both where you're listening or if you're watching it on YouTube, we will have a clip of our new commercial that we're running. So here in Oklahoma, we have Okie the Critter, which is our gopher and our big mascot. And now he has a neighbor who is a mouse named Click. And Click is just a real go-getter, sometimes goes too fast and doesn't click before he digs. And so we'll have a commercial. So there's a little teaser for our listeners to check out that commercial at the end of the podcast. But I think that makes sense. Like, we have a great opportunity to improve the safety of locate requests. Just like you said, twice as likely to have damages when it's called in, because those excavators are literally playing the telephone game with our contact center representatives. So that if a third of a mile and a fourth of a mile may not sound like a big difference, but it is when it comes to protecting those assets as well as that excavator.
You know, and it really comes down to the best practice, right? Best practices are designed and evolve over time to eliminate damages. Mm-hmm. It's been proven that, to my view, and I'm open to anybody challenging it, but I believe it's been proven that online locate request, click before you dig, is a better practice than call before you dig. Mm-hmm. And so in my mind, if we are dedicated to best practices, then that's what we should be promoting, is click before you dig. And that clickbeforeyoudig.com website has been up for about 10 years now. Initially, it was just a map of Canada, and about a year or two later, we included the map of the US. And every quarter, Utility Safety Partners owns hosts the website, and we maintain it. And every quarter, our administrative assistant goes through the entire every link to make sure they all work. And if they have to be updated, we do that as well. But it just makes so much sense, right? If you're telling somebody what to do, click before you dig. Well, that's kind of self-explanatory.
Right. And,
we just added the .com and away you go. So I would like to see a best practice emerge across the entire Canada, US to move down that path to click before you dig. Some people have to call, and that's fine. Homeowners, they dig once every 10 years, maybe even once in a lifetime. Oh, now I got to put my username in. Well, okay, you don't have to. If you don't want to, you can call. It's fine. But for the excavator, the professional excavator members, there's no reason to call. Just click. And the software is improving all the time. It makes sense, and I think it needs to be, mandated across all one call centers.
When your one calls went into that campaign, and they're like, "Hey, this is the training session. You get 1 quarter to figure this out. This is your last opportunity to call in." How was that responded to? How were the excavators and members handling those phone calls?
I think the majority were, I knew this was coming,
Okay.
And
it has to, right?
They were the holdouts, and they knew it was coming. But what I heard back from our agents and our team leaders was, people were receptive to it. And we had coached, the team leaders had coached their staff, how to go about this, and bringing people online and helping them migrate to online. And at the same time, we also have training webinars that we host every week during the digging season. And we would get 10, 20, then 50 people coming onto a free webinar. And it just teaches people not only just how to do a locate request, but how to manage their tickets online. There's so much more that we could be doing online. And once they get to, past that block, this is hard, It's like, oh my God, this is so easy. Why wouldn't anybody do it? You know,
Right.
one of my brothers-in-law, he lives here in Calgary, and he says, I'm not the most computer literate guy, but I go online. I was done in 10 minutes, and
Right.
I'd never done it before. And that's really what it's designed to do, is to help you get there if you need to.
Yeah, when I'm doing my training presentations, I sometimes just ask randomly, who ordered a pizza last week? And 90% of everybody's like, yeah, of course. Like, that's so easy. I'm like, cool. You know how the pizza man knew where to go? Like, that's all there is with a locate request. Instead of dropping off a pizza, they're throwing out some payment flags. And
exactly.
and I think that's the direction it should go. We should get to the point where we give the excavators that confidence that this isn't any harder than ordering a pizza. I mean, the conversation is straightforward. What type of work are you going to be doing? How long will it last? Where are you going to be digging? We'll take care of the rest. Like, that's
right.
it. So I think that's brilliant. Right now in Oklahoma, we are closing in on like 75%. A lot of that is because our efforts with our professional excavators. We have tiers of submissions. If you normally just call in and you're doing a couple of locates a week or a month, you'll submit it and then it'll still be reviewed and processed by one of us.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But then we get a tier where, hey, we've trained you, we sat down with you, we know you're doing it. We're still going to QA your ticket, but it can go directly from you to the member companies. Right. So those are direct submissions, of course. And so that has helped a lot, saying, hey, we trust that you figured this out. Mm-hmm. And giving them that trust and that ability to go, yeah, my locate request is technically being processed faster because I took the time to learn it. Yep. Cool. Granted, it's still within the data notification, doesn't count anyway, but I'm not going to ruin the surprise or secrets to anybody, but it still feels good to know that I got it through. And so we've been working on that education front. But I don't know if we'll ever get to the point where we put a hard stop on calls, but I love the idea. I think it makes sense. I like if it was mandated. I really do.
I think it makes sense too. I mean, it comes with the best practice, and it's hard to mandate. Like, we didn't take this lightly. When we went to the board, really the proof was, if we want to reduce damages further, we have to go online. We have to bring the professional excavators, the members, go online. I even went as far to my board member companies, and a couple of years back, and say, please go to your standard operating procedures, and where it says call and our phone number, get rid of it, and put in click before you dig in our website. That's what you have to. If you're going to do this, you got to walk the talk, right? And you just can't talk it. You got to walk it. So then and the board agreed. My board has been wonderful in that regard, because when they brought me in back in 2011, I can't believe it's been 11 years, but when they brought me in 2011, my mandate that I was given was, you need to turn a page here. You need to enhance services. This is what you're being hired to do. Mm-hmm. And I think we've been able to do that, but it's not just me. It's the entire organization. It's my colleagues. They have to believe in what we're doing. And collectively, I mean, no one person can do anything, but collectively we can do everything. And exactly. So I'm very, very fortunate to be working with the team that I am. And there's not too many bad apples I've seen out there in this industry. I think they get weeded out a long time ago. But and then to have the board agree, right? And then the board has a very serious job. They have to determine what's best for the organization, what's best to reduce damages, what's best for public safety. Mm-hmm. And if we've proven all that, then the answer is probably as plain as the nose on my face. And right. So when we got there, it was, to mandate for members and contractors, it was, well, the proof is there. If we don't do this, now it's on us.
My question for you is, when that mandate came about, you still had to market this. You had to put that message out there. Like I said, we're using a cute mouse. This is, step one of now we're always encouraging going on the website. We're always telling you while you're on your hold time to, hang up and go on our website. We've always encouraged it, but we haven't dove into nearly the extreme that Canada or Alberta has done. So what is it? How was your wording? How was your marketing put out there to get everybody there before the campaign of the last request?
A lot of what you did, right? The recording said, click before you dig, go online, reduce the wait time, because on a Monday morning in the height of the digging season, well, you're going to be on hold for about 45 minutes, maybe longer, to speak with an agent. And time better spent doing something else.
Mm-hmm.
In that amount of time, they could have been put in 5 locate requests. So, we did a lot of that. Radio ads, we advertise across 43 radio stations across the province. Our member companies, or our board member companies, they began promoting Click Before You Dig, even in their email signatures. Click Before You Dig was going there. Alberta One Call, we trademarked Click Before You Dig brand that you probably see with the little mouse cursor.
Mm-hmm.
We trademarked that. The URL we own, or I own it actually, clickbeforeyoudig.com, and it took a time to go there. Why we were going there, but when we, as I said earlier, once we hit this level that you know what, we just can't get past this 80 some odd %. Why is that? And it was then I thought, okay, there's got to be another angle here. And I said, on that hunch, I said, I think locate requests on the web have a better integrity. Turned out that was right, and then we were able to mandate, and the rest is history. 97, 98%. Interestingly enough, though, as I mentioned earlier, we provide services to Manitoba. Now, we don't govern Manitoba. The board of directors is Alberta only. In Manitoba, their online locate requests for members and contractors is about 98% as well.
Oh, wow.
And it's just, when they started, they called themselves Manitoba Click Before You Dig. If you're going to be something, call it what you want to be, right?
Yeah.
And so they started that way. And so that maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Saskatchewan, I think, is probably closer to 70 some odd %. And yet, they've been very, they've been promoting Click Before You Dig as well. I'm not sure how much, and British Columbia now is probably, the mid 80s as well. So, you reach a certain point, I think, where, well, just everything's online. So this must be online too, right?
Yeah. And that makes sense. I don't know if I've ever looked for a phone number before I looked for their website. I mean, in any aspect of my life, I need someone to fix something in my house. I'm not going to go grab the telephone book. I'm going to just go Google and figure out what's going on. So totally makes sense. And A11 should be just as Googleable. There's a word for us today. I made that up today.
Googleable.
I like it. So definitely clicking before you dig, getting that message across, getting us to 80 to 90 to 95% is definitely the direction we're going to go. But until we get there, I'm just really curious, what are the differences between Alberta and Oklahoma? For our listeners who have questions, or just like, this is just another world. They're obviously all the nicest people in Canada. They all put in their locate request because they have to. They're just the best neighbors ever. And that's why they're at 97% or whatever. Well,
I think the biggest difference between Alberta, I'll say Alberta One Call Utility Safety Partners, and the U.S., whether Oklahoma or any other state, is we don't have a call before you dig law. We don't have one call law across the country yet. The only province that has comprehensive damage prevention legislation, or you must request a locate before digging, is Ontario. That came in 2012. In Alberta, we're kind of like the Texas of Canada, right? We have a lot of pipelines. We have a lot of oil and gas. And in Alberta, we have what I like to call quasi legislation. So any transmission pipeline regulated nationally, federally, or provincially must register those assets with the one call center. That's Alberta and all of Canada. But only Alberta has provincial, and so does British Columbia. The transmission pipelines that are provincially regulated in those two provinces have to register. But everything else doesn't have to. Municipalities, electrical, telecom, they don't have to register.
Wow.
Most of them do. We have 850 members roughly, but we don't have that comprehensive legislation. That said, because of Alberta's heavy oil and gas character, people have, I think, a very strong sense that, I need to know what's below before I put a shovel in the ground. So that has helped us. And similar in Saskatchewan, very heavy oil and gas presence. But that's the biggest difference. Now, the other big difference is we jam a year's worth of excavation into about 7 or 8 months, because we have, heavy winter, obviously. Right now, the weather is phenomenal. We could have a foot of snow right now. We don't. Right today, I think it's 25 degrees Celsius, which is probably about 80 some odd degrees Fahrenheit. And it's beautiful. It's been a fantastic weather. And
it's warmer there today than it is here in Oklahoma City.
That's what I'm hearing. Yeah, it's pretty warm here compared to anywhere else, I think. But we, in Calgary anyway, we get these Chinook winds sometimes, and it'll change the temperature dramatically. But that's the biggest difference. The two biggest ones, we don't have that comprehensive legislation, although we're working on it. And the digging season is compressed.
Yeah.
And, which is good in a way, because it allows us a little bit of downtime to help prepare for the following year, whether that's modifying our training or implementing new programs, that type thing, or assessing the effectiveness of the existing programs. So it's built into our cycle, but those would be the two biggest differences.
That makes sense. Here in Oklahoma, our slow season, we never have a down season. Like, there's never stoppage because we never get that cold. But the holidays, of course, so November and December, things slow down quite a bit. And then January and February, it's actually pretty cold, so it does kind of slow down. So those 4 months is about it's a slowdown. Instead of, I don't know, instead of like 30,000 tickets, we'll have 15 to 20,000 those months. So things do slow down, but like you said, we use that time to revamp our policies and procedures. We get some refresher training to our contact center. I get to get some refresher training with the people that I'm working with, and making sure that we're all on the same page. So I'm looking forward to it. It's also a great opportunity for all my podcast recordings as well. So things are going well. I've been really, really impressed with the success that you've had with Click Before You Dig. I know that I'm going to be talking to you offline. All of OK11 is going to be talking with you offline to see, as you look at what we're doing marketing wise and stuff like that, if you have some ideas and some lessons learned from what you went through to help us get our numbers up. Because like you said, it just makes sense. It's the best practice. The excavators know what they're doing, and we just need to get them confident in the process, just like ordering a pizza.
It really is that easy, and it's just going to get easier. It really is. When I first started, promoting Click Before You Dig and waving that flag, I had most people looking at me like, "Are you out of your mind? Like, why would we do that? Trust the software to do this for us?" And, okay, well, 10 years later, it's like, okay, well, look at that. 86% across the country here in Canada is online. And, we weren't the first ones to offer the web. Everybody offered it, but I think we were the first ones to really harness it and promote it the way we have, and to center our entire awareness campaign around Click Before You Dig.
That is outstanding. Just outstanding. So, Mike, I think that's really all we have today. Can you give a story of why A11 is so important to you? Obviously, you've been in a role or a stakeholder within the process for many, many years. This is usually the last question I ask about everybody, but can you kind of just give me your overall perspective of damage prevention?
Yeah, it's interesting how your career goes. And I came to Alberta 32 years ago, and I got on with a federal regulator at the time for transmission pipelines. And I had an incredible education offered to me from the National Energy Board. At the time, I was an inspector. And I got to see firsthand the damage that can occur as a result of a person not requesting a locate. And whether that's an excavator or an owner of buried utilities or a homeowner. And I got to talk with people who were affected by that directly. And a couple of those instances left a lasting mark on me. And, I did a lot of other things. I was a construction inspector for pipelines. I did a lot of other things. But the damage prevention element of what I did during those early years, 30 some odd years ago, and before that I had a railway background, and it was not even conducive to what I do now, but those early years just seemed to put me on this path that there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a way to avoid this, right? And so I was always around it. And I had the opportunity to be on the CGA board of directors in the US, representing Canada for many years. And I thought, wow, this is a juggernaut of engagement, of awareness, of education. This is what it's all about, right? And it's meeting people like you, and meeting people like I've met across the country, in Canada and around in the US, and really around the world. Everybody working towards the same end, to improve public worker and community safety. And that's really what it means to me.
That is awesome.
We want to ask you to subscribe to our podcast so that you can be the first to hear each new episode. If you are watching on YouTube, be sure to follow the channel for not only our podcast, but also educational videos on Oki 811 services. Follow us on social media to know of upcoming educational events, such as Safety Days or our Expo, or to know the next time we may be hiring. Thank you for listening to Digging Deep, an Oki 811 podcast. After you subscribe, be sure to share.
I agree. I've been with Oki 811 now. I'm in my 11th year. And if you would have told me 15 years ago, hey, MG, you're going to get a job, we're going to be talking about digging all the time. Yeah. That was not the career path I was on at all. But every single conversation I have with anybody within the industry, or any excavator, or anybody who's working out in the field, I always walk away from the conversation going, I hope I said one more thing to help them realize how important their safety is and why we do what we do. And that's kind of my goal. And it's just blown me away. I couldn't have a better job, a better industry to be in. And just knowing the impact that we're having on the community, and whether it's protection of that infrastructure or the protection of that worker, it's very, very important. So
like I said earlier, no one person can do it all, but collectively we can do everything. And here's a perfect example: the two of us connecting today across the country to promote best practices. I mean, I would love to have the legislation you have, and you would love to have the web stats I have, and collectively we'll get there.
Outstanding. Yes, we will. So Mike, I appreciate you so much. Well, thank you for joining us today. For those who are listening, please go ahead and take the time to share this great message. Make sure that people within your industry know the importance of digging safe in Oklahoma, and let's all get to where we're clicking before we dig. I think that made sense.
What I tend to say is, one click costs you nothing. Not clicking could cost you everything.
Awesome.